Welcome to the Renaissance Athletic Club podcast. I'm Todd Johnson, your host for this episode, and I'm going to be a geeked out fanboy this time because I am a huge boxing fan, and I'm going to introduce you to one of the local area experts. I cannot tell you how lucky the Southwest Michigan area is to have in their presence, Clair Ramirez. And thank you so much, Claire, for taking your time. And you, Diane, being here today is really awesome for us. Tell some people who don't know who you are, which is amazing that they don't. And the fact that you and I had to come to Michigan to meet each other when we ran in the same circles in Chicago for years. We're actually at the same events and never actually ran into one another. So
I feel like we have.
We probably did. Yeah, we probably did at some point. So,
well, thank you so much for that introduction. That's amazing. I'm from Chicago, as you just said, and I've been boxing for about 25 years.
Okay.
And I've won the Golden Gloves. I've competed in the Golden Gloves 6 times. We were trying to figure that out. And I trained with the Cuban Olympic team down in Havana, Cuba for 4 years. I was planning to be a pro fighter, but I ended up life kind of decided for me. My mom got really sick, and so I had to care for her. And her illness happened really like right when my pro fight, I was getting my license, right when it was all revving up. And she got diagnosed with cancer almost in the same month my contracts came through. And I just feel like it was really not meant to be. So that was a really big turning point in my boxing career. But my coach, who I'd been with for 25 years, he always says, never regret that you didn't make the pro fights because you did everything that most people in the world couldn't imagine doing in the sport of boxing. Very few people make it to the Golden Gloves. Very few people win the Golden Gloves, and you've done it, multiple times. So you should be really proud about everything that you've done. And so I take that. I'm a fierce competitor, and even now I sometimes get offered pro fights, and it's really hard to turn it down. I'm 45 now, and I need to my nose is in the center of my face. I'm not slurring my words yet, I don't think. My memory is somewhat okay, so I need to just...
So from people outside the Chicago area, and then I know different areas in the country, and again, I'm biased, but winning Chicago Golden Gloves is a big deal.
Yes.
It's a very big thing. And even when boxing hasn't been as popular in other times in other areas, and still in Chicago, it's a very big deal. Not an easy place to win, and a very rough place to win.
Very rough. They're such amazing fighters. Chicago is a tough town, as you know. I mean, it's scrappy, and there wasn't a huge stable of female fighters in Chicago, or really in the world when I was...
How did you get into boxing originally? What got you into it?
I will say that I was born very scrappy. I think I had my first fight at about 5 years old, and I just and people think I was angry in a when I talk about this, and I wasn't an angry kid. It's just that's how I like to express myself. And there's just this knowing that, okay, if we're going to take this to the street, I'm going to win. And I feel like that in the ring. And I feel like that, at a board meeting, I feel like if we're going to take it there, I'm going to win. And I have just felt like that since I was 5 years old. And I really struggled as a kid. I had growing up was not an easy thing. It's not an easy space for me. I struggled as a student. I struggled at home. I was sent away at 15. I lived on the streets for 2 years, and I fought all the time. And I really had to survive. I saw a lot of really kind of harsh things growing up, and I didn't think that highly of myself because I just wasn't succeeding anywhere. I later found out I have dyslexia and multiple learning disabilities or whatever, but I just wasn't a success in the traditional sense. And I felt that every day as a kid. I would feel that every day. And I was frustrated because I understood everything. I just couldn't stand to sit still in class. I thought it was super boring. And I don't know, I felt it was controlling. I have a problem with authority. I think I was born like that as well.
Hence, great fighters are born, not just made, but great fighters
Yeah,
are
they're
born.
born. They're
There's no
born.
doubt
It's
about
just,
it.
you know,
No
that's
doubt
why I
about it.
love this sport. It gives people that don't that don't fit in a traditional sense. It gives them an arena to prove themselves wrong or prove themselves right, to prove themselves strong,
Find your place. Yep.
a better place. I met my coach at 20.
What was your first gym that you went into?
It was in Seward Park. Do you know Seward Park?
Sure do, yeah.
That's in Cabrini Green for.
It's a very tough area.
That's a very tough area. And my coach, he was a boss of all things. Like the police wouldn't touch him, Cabrini Green wouldn't touch him. And so as fighters, and I didn't grow up in Cabrini Green. I grew up on the west side near Oak Park or in Oak Park, but I didn't grow up in Cabrini Green. But my coach coached in Cabrini Green. And the second I met him, it was like, I don't know, it was destiny. And he was training Letitia Baby Girl Robinson. I met him in a bar.
He's one heck of a fighter. One heck of a fighter.
She's incredible. She's crazy.
Yes.
She is like her style. I've seen her knock out men. She's been fighting. She's my idol in boxing, and she's my mentor as well. But Fonz was training Letitia Baby Girl Robinson.
So when you say Fonz, that's your coach?
That's my coach. Excuse me. Yep. And I was 21 actually. I was 21. I met him at a bar. Tish came in right after weigh-ins, and she was like the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life. I didn't know Fonz was a boxing coach. I didn't know female boxing, women's boxing even existed. And when I saw her walk in, I was like, whoa, like she was just glowing. You're a fan of boxing, so you know when a fighter's ready to fight, they have this glow to them, and really they look superhuman. And she did. She looked superhuman. And then she sat down, she ordered fettuccine Alfredo. And I was like, what? I was like, how? I've always been in athletics. I've always been into sports. And so part of being in sports, you have to focus on your weight and things like that. I was like, I cannot eat fettuccine Alfredo and look like that. And then
so really the boxing was to get to the fettuccine.
Yeah, I was like, what? And Fonz was like, oh, that's one of my fighters. She has a fight. She's fighting. I think she was scheduled to fight Layla Ali that weekend. I can't remember what fight she was training for. The fight ended up not happening. But that got me into the gym with Fonz. And I was like, can I come watch you train her? That's incredible. She fights. And it was literally like Cupid's arrow. And Fonz is like, come into the gym. You'll train with us once. You'll never want to do it ever again. I went to the gym, like literally the next day, and I thought I was going to die. He had me run the stairs, and I was like, oh my God. He had me running the stairs. I thought I was going to pass out. But then he put the mitts on me. He gave me the mitts. He wrapped me up, put some gloves on me. He's like, you hit like a man. If you ever want to fight, I'll train you for free because you'll win everything. And I've never had anyone like see something special in me before. And he did. And he was the first adult in my life that told me never to drink. I grew up, in a very Irish Catholic setting, and we use alcohol for everything, as a tool for everything. And it's a very normalized tool in our lineage. And Fonz was the first adult in my entire life that told me, God wants you to do great things, but you can't do these things. Sorry, I get emotional. I think
That's okay. That's all right. That's 100% okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
He passed away in September, and I'm still working through that.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's been my my best friend and like one of my closest friend and my only friend for 25 years. And I talked to him every day up until the day he died. I talked to him the day he died. I didn't know he was even sick. But so that was 21. He caught me early,
Right.
and he put the kibosh on all alcohol, all substances right then and there. And he's like, if you're going to fight, you have to let all this go. You can't, you have to be you have to be in the house by 8:00. And he would stalk me. He'd be at my apartment by 8:00, making sure that I would be coming in. And if he was crazy. He would pick me up in the gym in the morning and call me every night by 8. And if I wasn't home, he'd find me somewhere out in River North or Gold Coast and be like, get your ass back, you get home or you're not training. And that was every day of my life in my 20s and 30s, pretty much. And he changed my life. He changed the whole direction and path of my life. I feel like I've lived 9 lives. I've done things that people only dream about doing. I've worked in movies, I've owned restaurants, and I don't even think about those things. What sticks with me is, and what I'm so proud of, and what I feel is truly a part of me, is my time with Fonz. Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. So just real quick,
Sorry.
It's okay. Just give some people an idea, because this is also really a weird thing that I both know people who work in the movie industry, and we never really even connected through that. Like literally know people in the stunt industry who you work with frequently. So how did you get into that portion of that? So Sue, because there's a lot to unpack here.
There is. I'm so sorry.
No, you're kidding me. You're doing great.
Thanks.
You're doing great.
So
it's all right.
Part of my reckoning with my family to get back home, because I was in very dangerous situations. Once I got sent to a boarding school in Utah when I was 15, and I graduated early because I am really smart. I just don't like people telling me when I should do my stuff. But once I realized what kind of situation I was like, oh, okay, they're not messing around. I did all my work. I actually graduated from 2 high schools because they didn't know what to do with me. I finished my work at the boarding school, and then I went to a public school in Utah. And then I graduated, and I think I was 17, and I was a really young, mentally young 17-year-old, and I really do need a lot of structure, which is why my coach transformed my life. But I was just kind of turned out on the streets. I had a foster family for my senior year of high school, and once I graduated, I was out of the system. So and my parents were like, you absolutely cannot come back home. And so I was just kind of drifting and wandering the United States for a while. And I got myself into really scary situations. Because I was hustling. I was trying to keep a roof over my head, and it was hard. And I got into a really bad situation in Florida. Ended up in Florida. I don't know why, my dad didn't just come drag me back home by then, but I got into a really scary situation. I thought I was going to die. And I called my mom from a payphone. I don't know if people remember those things.
You put coins in those things.
Yeah.
At the
Called her
station.
from the payphone, and I was like, can you please buy me a ticket home, and I will go back to school. I will go, I will register. I'll pay for it myself. I promise, I'm done. And she's like, I'll let you come back. We'll do this on a trial basis. And she let me back home. And I did. I went to Columbia College, which is a huge film school and a huge art school in Chicago. And I didn't study film. I had no idea what I wanted to do at school. I just knew I needed something different. I needed my life to change. And so I showed up to the registration. I didn't even know we had to pick a major. It was just I was like, I don't know. I like to write. And so I was like, oh, I wanted to be a war reporter. So I signed up for journalism with the idea that they'd send me to war. And I was, because my dad wouldn't let me go to the Marines. I really wanted to go to the Marines. And he was like, absolutely not. He did Vietnam twice, 2 tours. So he said, no Marines. And so I was like, well, I'll go report. And I was like, that sounds cool, right? And I did really well in school. It was it was such a great school for me. It was very hands-on. The teachers were exciting. They were all working in the field. Sure. I met so many creative people and that sort of thing. I was bartending downtown Chicago. That's kind of how I met Fonz. It kind of loops back to Fonz. Okay. And when I graduated, I think Columbia sent me a notification that a casting director was hiring for a movie. And I was like, what? Movies get made? I didn't even know that. And I was like, okay, I can do that job. And I got hired as a casting assistant on Stranger Than Fiction with Will Ferrell and Dustin Hoffman. It was my first movie, and I killed it. The next film, I got hired for a Clint Eastwood film shortly thereafter, and I got promoted to casting associate. And then I started working on all the Batmans. I just started kind of, and in between. So if you work on films, sometimes you get like up to 3 months off in between projects, especially in the Midwest.
Sure.
We don't have the industry like LA. And now it's a little
constant,
bit different. Yeah.
When a big one comes in, you work a lot.
We work a lot. Yeah.
Right.
We work like 100-hour weeks. But then I would get this time off, so I would be with Fonz every day. And I would go back to training. I would go back to film. Sometimes I'd get like a 2-week project, like Shameless would come in. There's a TV show called Shameless.
Sure. Yeah.
Worked on that, and we'd work one god awful month. I think that show broke me. Was one of the ones that broke me. Sorry, Shameless, but it was insanity. And then I would go back to Fonz, and we train and get some fights here and there, some show fights, and that was my life for over a decade. It was pretty intense. But what was so cool is like that's such an ego-driven industry. And I was young, and I thought it was like so cool that I was around all these movie stars. And but what's interesting, when I started fighting, when I started competing, like nobody, like all the movie stars wanted to hang around with me and come to the gym and train with me. And I just thought that was the coolest thing.
That's an amazing connection, though, too, because even famous people admire fighters because they think, again, there is no more ultimate test, I think, of a person than actually stepping toe-to-toe with somebody else and facing. It's just the two of you. Yeah. And it's out there for everybody to see. And I think everybody realized the amount of courage that it really takes to step between the ropes. It's very.
And I think there's something, you've been in boxing gyms before. Nothing plugs in. I always say that. My first boxing gym I fought out of, so my 2 gyms that I come from was Seward Park and Cabrini Green, and then Taylor Park, which is in the Robert Taylor homes. We didn't have anything that plugged in. Taylor Park was a little more fancy. They had a couple treadmills, but we had mismatched weights. Our bags had been taped together so many times. I wish I had pictures. I think I have pictures of my ring at Seward Park. It was the smallest ring possible. We called it like the ring of death because you couldn't dance out of, you were just stuck in battle. There was no room to move. So you just, it was insane.
Changes your style of fighting completely.
Yes. Oh, I'm a brawler.
Absolutely.
Seward Park made me a brawler. There was nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And it was literally taped together, taped down. And I think there's just something, I think that's why I love Cuba so much. We just have so much here in our country and our culture. There's so much excess, and it's confusing, I find, and maybe that's why I didn't do so well as a younger kid. Maybe I just picked up on all this. There's just so much, and there's no, it just feels like this free-for-all of
disconnection.
Disconnection and
sure. So I mean, one of the most amazing things I found was when I had met you was the fact that you were involved with the Cuban boxing program, which, again, for people that don't know, like the Cuban Olympic program is
the best.
It's the most premier in the world. And it's not, and I'm gonna let you talk about this, but it's not just boxing there. It's a cultural icon there. Boxing is a cultural icon. It's part of the culture there. And explain like the fact that a woman was able to train with that team. Like I was stunned when you. It was
an act of God, I think. I have no idea how I pulled that off. Like it was.
You literally are 1 in a million on that one.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Well,
go ahead and explain.
So I was in Cuba for a long weekend.
And you were just in Cuba for a long weekend.
Yes, I was just in Cuba for a long weekend, and I was at this crossroads of, do I fight pro, or do I just like retire? I was getting up there in athlete years, and I was a little lost. I'm not gonna lie. I think this was like 2018. I was just kind of a little lost. Like there's just something so sad about the aging athlete. especially fighting. I mean, it's probably I don't want to ever compare myself to a soldier because the trauma that soldiers see is nothing like a fight. But my cousin's a Navy SEAL, and his job is in helicopters and like all this stuff, all this like adrenaline intense days, and that my training is it's adrenaline, it's me and my body, it's me and my coach. It's very focused and streamlined, and then to kind of get out of that is shocking, and it's a really hard adjustment. So
Well, obviously, this was a very big guide in your life. This was a very anchoring point of your life. Obviously, finding boxing was a big anchoring point in your life and a directional force for you. So.
Definitely, it settled me, it grounded me, gave me focus. It helped me connect to my body. I mean, I could go on and on. But with Cuba, I was walking through the art district and I was flipping through some photographs that a Cuban artist did. And I pulled up one, and it was this little kid hitting a bag in this, it was beautiful, in this like corner, rustic corner, decrepit building, but there was a bag hanging from it, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's a sign!" I was like, "Cuban boxing." And I went right back to my room, to my casita, and like looked up, "How do I box in Cuba?" And I found this thread and a phone number on it about Cuban training in Cuba. And I called the number, and a woman from the UK answered, and she happened to be married to the Cuban boxing coach. And we talked for like 2 hours, and she's like,
This sounds like a Guy Ritchie movie.
it was awesome. And she's like, come and train with him. I'm sure he'll allow you to come train. And so I came out the next month, and I stayed for a month, and then my boxing improved 1,000%. My footwork improved 1,000%, and it was just game on after that. I just kept going back. It was one of the best times of my life. Yeah, so I did that off and on. I'd go for a month, come home for a month, go for a month, come home for a month for about 3.5, 4 years.
Can you talk about what the differences, basically what you found between American boxing and the Cuban boxing system, and were major differences between the two?
Well, Chicago boxing, I feel like we're brawlers. I mean, Chicago just has this like rich history of I don't know, we're fighters, and in to the street sense, we fight each other's neighborhoods, and our neighborhoods are
very big part of the culture. It's cultural neighborhoods in Chicago, and this is where it all comes together in the Golden Gloves.
Yes, it's so intense, like, and it's very culturally and racially divided in Chicago. I was not in my race or my culture's gym, but I was welcomed in with,
Right.
and I did them proud, I hope, in on the west side and the south side. But it's an intense battle, and it's personal. And Cuban boxing is, I'm sure it's personal as well, but there's like an art to it. There's a dance to it, and you have to relax and enjoy. I remember the main cue that I heard from my Cuban coach when I was fighting down in Cuba. He'd always say, "Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy." That was his instructions for me in the ring. That was it. Not jab, not slip, like enjoy, enjoy. So they just really taught me how to relax. And that has changed my boxing significantly. Because I used to just go in and destroy. I walk forward, I back you up. Like I can walk through, a machine gun of punches coming my way, no problem, but I'm going to back you down. I'm going to get you on the ropes. I'm going to knock you out. And that was my strategy. And it did me well, but it wouldn't have taken me, maybe it would have in the pros,
Sure.
But I needed more. And Cuba definitely taught me how to move my feet, taught me how to enjoy and relax. And we would train all morning and then go out dancing all night, and salsa dancing and music. Oh my gosh, I wish I could just like put videos up of our training. But you walk into Rafael Trejo's, where I trained. You walk into the gym every morning, and the boxers have salsa music on, and they're all dancing before we even start training, and they're just so full of joy and I don't know, it's just nothing I've ever experienced in my life. And the second you go in, I find this with pretty much any boxing gym I've been around, but Cuban, like for some reason, you just feel like they've known you forever and you're just taken in and you're filled with all of this immense joy that expresses itself in dancing and laughter and even if you don't speak the language they're going to figure out how to communicate with you and they're going to
Sure.
make you move your hips and they're going to teach you some salsa moves and that's every morning and it's just like it's a joy and a gift to wake up to something like that every day. It was really hard for me to not.
That's when people refer to the boxing as the sweet science. That's where the sweet science of it comes in. We've talked before about how many great fighters or great dancers on top of it. And people look at boxing a lot of times as just kind of something you just do and you bang into things and not really realize the science and the art that's behind it and how much it takes. And not only that, it's you have to be this artist and this poet at the same time, but you also have to express the most brutal side of yourself at the same time.
That's what I love about it. I love because I feel like if you're honest with yourself, we all have this like really dark side. And I don't think it's that bad. We're animals, we kill to eat. Clearly we have territorial issues, and I mean that's a very animal instinct. And I think a lot of a big part of our culture is repression, repression, repression. And I don't do well not being able to live
Sure.
loudly and freely. And even, with my dark side, like if I get really mad at Diane, my husband, if I'm like, come on, let's go put our gloves on. Like, let's go spar. Like, 'cause I'm like, I need to get this out, and at the same time, training in Cuba taught me like how to really express like a full level of joy of just being. And there's no internet. There is, but it's really difficult to get.
Sure.
There's no screen time. I heard the last interview. There's no people aren't buried
Right.
in their phones.
Right.
It's just this, and there's not much there. There's just this connection with the sport, connection with your teammates, and it's lovely. I don't know.
And that's, I think, one of the best parts about boxing, and when it's done right, and you and I both know that you're much more involved than I am. I'm just a fan. But how many times you say, oh man, I finally think boxing's going to get it together. And then it's this dysfunctional relationship where you're like, oh no, and like my
Yeah.
friend and I always text each other about fights and I'm like, why did this happen? And it's like, because it's boxing. and there's a whole other side of that. But what keeps people coming back to this dysfunctional relationship is that when you really realize the beauty of that is people walk in the ring and they go at it and they walk out and it's over. It's a healthy way of working that out between two people, and it's honest. There's nothing more honest, I think, than stepping between the ropes. And
I love that. In Chicago, I trained with police officers, gangbangers, actors, just little me. I don't know where I fit in all that. I was kind of in the middle, and we were all under, Fonz's rule, and like whatever he said goes, and we would get in the ring and completely kill each other. And then when it's, when we're done, we're all like, wow, we made it through that. And it really created an incredible community. And I think it created an incredible community like within Cabrini to a point,
Sure.
and
so many healthy outlets for so many people without real great options, and finding that area for so many people has been such a great way out. And even we always see the people who, made it in this, but we don't see the people that it helped that ended up going into business or getting a job or finding their way or finding a way of expressing themselves that was healthy and got them off the streets and found a better way. You talked about finding discipline and thinking, how am I going to find a healthy lifestyle? How do you think I should find a healthy lifestyle inside of a boxing gym? But obviously that was there for you.
Oh, 1000%. Like I think that I think what people don't understand is that there's very few champions that remain champions that drink or do drugs. There's very few coaches, if any, that will promote or allow their fighter or coach a fighter that drinks or does drugs. If if, to have that community support. So you're just surrounded by this whole group of people that are training just as hard as you. You know that if coach smells alcohol from your night before, like we're all gonna die, and like knowing that you're all in this together is such a life-changing scenario. Like Fonz coached us, like there's no individual, we're all one. And so, yeah, if somebody was late, like we'd all die. If somebody was, and so you had accountability. You learned to show up for other people. You learned to show up for your team. You learned to show up for yourself. And that was just some of the most invaluable lessons I've ever had in my life. And I think it's taken me really far. My dad in 2012 was my first Golden Gloves, and my dad was dying of cancer. And I remember Fonz would be like, I was my dad's caretaker along with my mom, but my Fonz would pick me up every morning. He's like, just come and get a couple hours in at the gym, stay focused, and then go do what you need to do for your family. So I would think, like, if I won fights, like the more I won, the more I trained, the stronger I got, the stronger my dad would get. And I really honestly believe that. And boxing just kept my head above water. And you have to understand, like I had this access to Hollywood always at my fingertips, and the restaurant industry always at my fingertips. And then I had this kind of anchor over here at the boxing gym. So I always had this choice, like, how can I manage this crisis? I can go, party my butt off and escape and numb, or I can show up and because this gym believes I'm like the next world champion, and that's how they treated me every day. And so that suggestion that I could possibly be champion of the world kept me turning in the right direction, kept me going to the gym every day I'd go. So I just think, like, boxing, I mean, it trains you it's a really dangerous sport. So you can't half-ass your training.
You don't play at boxing.
Yeah,
Nobody plays boxing. Yeah.
You don't play boxing.
You play sports. You don't play boxing.
My coach will always say the ring never lies. He'd be like, what'd you eat yesterday? And be like, oh, I ate, don't you see my halo? Fruits and vegetables. He's like, okay, we'll see. Let's see how you do in the ring. And he'd always know if I love sugar. He'd always know if I had some chocolate or whatever. He'd be like, look at your stomach, that sounds terrible, but he would. And he'd be like, you're moving so slow. You didn't sleep, you didn't get in bed at 9:00 last night. You're moving so slow. And like the ring never lied. So I had accountability at every corner. Right. And it was because they believed that I was going to be something great. And if I cheated myself and didn't show up for myself every day, I was cheating the whole entire gym out of something great.
So people look at boxing as an individual sport, but it really is probably one of the ultimate team sports, because there's no boxer that's ever gotten to a ring without a lot of people behind him and a lot of people absorbing and learning from so many people, and so many of the connections between, obviously, Mike Tyson's his story is very, very familiar with Costamato and him, and what a great father figure he was in turning his life, and then losing Cus. You saw what the direction of Mike's life turned. It's very easy for people to sit on the outside and judge and say, like that. But what this does, I think, for many, many people, it gives them a direction and an outlet. You said you didn't find a spice that fit for you. This was your fit. This was your spot, and it's more than just that. And there are other sports that definitely that transcend this, but boxing seems to be the one that has the greatest number of people that find it in that area, that it's really, really right for them. And as a woman, though, like the fact that you were able to get in with the Cuban boxing team is just this. I mean, I don't want to.
Another woman hooked me up. That's all I gotta say. She got me in.
Yeah. Can talk about more about that, because okay. I don't want that to be go unnoticed.
Yeah, I'm
sorry, no. It's okay. I understand it. I kind of do, but how did that happen again?
So I called this number, and her name's Katie, and she's actually one of my dearest friends now. We now bring like groups to Cuba so they can have this like a version of this experience with me, but I called her and we ended up talking I was in Havana and she's like, "You're there now." And we just got back. So her husband is a Cuban national, but he married Katie and he ended up moving to London, but he was one of the main coaches in Rafael Trejo. And was he still there? Maybe he was still, I think he was still there and they were working out the citizenship or the paperwork for London. So it took a couple years. I think because I did train with him in Cuba. Sorry. It still feels like so long ago. So she said, "Why don't you come back?" I think I was there in April. She's like, "Why don't you come back next month? And Russell will let you come in and you can just train with the guys." And there's a couple women there that wasn't legal for women to fight at that time, but there was a couple women training there with hopes that Cuba will legalize it because Cuba is like they are masters at the Olympics, like, and they're really not behind the times when it comes to
sports science is amazing there. It really is.
Medical science is amazing there as well. They're really advanced.
It's a very focused sports medicine, things like that.
I always say if you want to learn something, find a teacher in Cuba and go, because they're so masterful and so detailed in their skills and they're phenomenal teachers. But anyway, I digressed a little bit. So Katie invited me back out to go train with Russell and the Cuban national team, and I showed up to training. I had 3 coaches. I had Russell, Eduardo, and I had 4 coaches, Akala and Lester. And so none of them only Akala is there now, but they all left. Since then has left. There's been like kind of a mass exodus in Cuba of like the younger generation, which is sad and beautiful at the same time. But so I just started training. I started sparring with the hopefuls, the women hopefuls, and I can spar and work with the guys down there. And I've developed relationships that will last me a lifetime. A couple of my coaches and the fighters that I worked with are now in Dubai, and they are, baby, ¿quién, Diane, tiene un pelear con... Yeah, so one of the fighters that I trained with, he has 15 knockouts as a pro fighter. He fights out of Dubai, and he trains with my Cuban coach, Eduardo, and he's training for a belt. He's going to fight a world title belt. So, and then another coach of mine, ¿quién entrena Lester? Pero ¿quién es su boxeador? Can't remember his name. I'm so embarrassed. So
okay.
my coach Lester, he trains a world champion out of Boston.
Okay.
He escaped, and so they're some of the best trainers.
So do you want to tell everybody who you're speaking to off screen? That's okay.
Speaking very bad Spanish. No, my Spanish is okay. Let's see. Okay.
And who's that fellow you're speaking with?
My husband, Diane. He's also a coach. He also coaches in Boxing House International with us. And he's my sparring partner as well. The best. Awesome. It's like the best couples therapy.
Sure. Work it out. We'll work it out in the ring.
We're the most difficult couple, no? Like, dude, he jokes because like the men in his culture, like when we go back home, when they said like we're getting married, she's a boxer. They're like, oh, don't marry a boxer. Don't marry a boxer. And I get it. Like Cuban women are so beautiful and like, I don't know, and soft, and they like take care of their men. And I'm just like, let's fight. I want to be more
slightly different approach.
Yeah.
So
he loves it.
Yeah. So who were like in the boxing field? Who were some of your inspirations? As
Mike Tyson. I met Mike Tyson. It was the best day of my life. I love Mike Tyson. So when I'm fighting and I've studied I've seen all of his fights. Still, if I'm having a bad day, I'll watch one of his fights and I'm like, I got this, Yeah. And I will stand in that corner right before the bell rings, and I just like see and feel Mike Tyson I feel all of his fights. I feel all of his energy, and I'm like, this girl's done. She's got 30 seconds with me, and she's done. and he's my everything.
Yeah.
And of course Muhammad Ali. I always say, people are probably not gonna like this, but I talk to Muhammad like people talk to Jesus. So I was in a.
He walked past me in an airport one time when I was a little kid.
Oh my God!
And when he lost the Spanx, I was literally sobbing like a little kid. So
Oh.
I when he walked past me in the airport, it was like I get the experience because I was like I thought like I saw Superman.
You did
wrapped
see
up. It was
Superman.
all wrapped up into one. And I'm still to this day. I remember I'm like, man, it was the best looking dude I've ever seen in my life. He would just walk
Exactly.
by me and he had a suit on. And I was like,
Oh my God! I would have.
oh my God, yeah,
I
incredible.
just missed him. Apparently, my house in Stevensville is like really close to where.
People don't
he
realize what a
lived.
hotbed of area what this was for boxing. And
That
it's
I
still
didn't know
is,
that, and I
yeah.
moved here blindly without knowing the history. And I was like, boxing constantly leads my life.
And one thing about Tyson, real quick, I just want to add, like, people look at Michael's brutality, but if you actually looked at Michael's skill set, an unbelievable skill set, and an unbelievable fact, Customato took a guy like Floyd Patterson, who couldn't have been any more different than Ali, and turned him into a world champion, turned Michael into a world champion, a guy who didn't like to get hit and used to get very frustrated, and turned him into a world champion because he recognized his skill set. And then also, I think that Mike loved Cuss so much that he realized that he was fighting for Cuss, and he was fighting for something bigger than himself. Somebody actually found him and cared about him. So there's an awful lot behind that goes into that too.
I super relate to that.
Yeah.
I fought for Fonz, and I would have done anything for him.
So I was going to ask you, who's your toughest opponent? Who was the toughest person you ever
My
fought?
first fight, some girl from Humble Park, Puerto Rican girl from Humble Park. That girl hit so hard. I wish I could remember her name. I always ask. That was my first. That was in 2012, and that was the fight of my life. She hit like she had bricks in her gloves. And I've never said that about any other female fighter. I used to spar only men, but this girl hit like a man. And I was like, I don't know who's going to win. I won, of course. But but yeah, I wish I could remember her name. I'm sure I could find it somewhere in the history books of the Golden Gloves. But she was a really hard competitor. And I would love to see if she ever continued after that. But I never met her again in the gloves. So...
Okay.
She might have. I moved down weight classes, so maybe she continued. But she was a great fighter. Sorry, I can't remember her names. I was a sparring partner to to Jessica McCatskill, who's a world champion. And that was when I was her sparring partner. I trained with Montel Griffin was my pro coach. He's a world champion out of Chicago. And he was my pro coach, and we've been friends for forever. And I asked him to take me pro, and so he got me sparring with Jessica McCaskill and Rick Ramos's gym, and that was just a great experience. It was really cool to be able to, go 10 rounds with a world champ. And
Sure.
that was on my way to the pros, and that was a really fun time for me. Yeah.
So I've had the good fortune of watching you and Diane train fighters, and I know, and Laura and I got a chance to go to your gym, and we are completely blown away by you.
Thank
One,
you.
by your story, and then two, by your skill set. So can you talk a little bit about how boxing fits into other people's schedule? I know the actual act of boxing and sparring can be dangerous, but what about for people who just want to get fit?
I train everyone from 5 years old to 80 years old. I've had a couple Parkinson's, people who suffer with Parkinson's. I've trained them. Boxing, I think, has such a great, you have to use everything. You have to use your mind to work your feet, and then you have to use your hands to hit the mitts, and then at the same time you have to remember the count of the punches and what the punches are. And it has such great medicine for cognitive health and hand-eye coordination. So, and really, you are going to feel the same sense of community that has been such an anchoring point in my life. Whether you're the 85-year-old that comes into the gym, you have a place there. You're important to the rest of the community because you're going to cheer on. First of all, your goals are going to be met pretty quickly. Like boxing gets you in shape pretty quickly in a way that nothing else does. I've done it all. I've been in the fitness industry forever, and boxing is
I will agree with you. There's no shape like fighting shape.
And it's not even, you wouldn't even have to step foot. Nobody has to throw a punch at you once. It's just, all the conditioning that I have to give you. And I know how to condition people who are 5, and I know how to condition people who are 85. And people, the best thing about being a coach is when people call me and say, "Oh, I can't come in. I hurt my knee." I'm like, "Well, you got another one. Come on in. You got, I can't, my wrist hurts. So you got another wrist. We're just not going to wrap up that hand." There's no excuses in boxing. There's no excuse. And that's another reason why I love the sport so much. And I love watching people's minds kind of work around those responses to me, and, or like, I want to quit. I want to get out of the ring. I'm going to throw up. And I'm like, I got a mop. I got a bucket. What do you need? Let's go. Like, don't quit. You have 3 minutes. Figure it out. And pushing people to those limits. Not that, obviously I handle with care.
Sure.
But nobody has to know that,
Right.
while we're in the gym. I'm in medical school right now. I'm going to be a doctor, and I do take people's health very seriously.
We realize you're a complete underachiever at this point. So yes, we're very aware of us. We could have like 7 or 8 more shows and cover the rest of this, but
I know. No, I also
you're amazing.
Don't want to, I don't like I like doctor lifestyle. But you have so much more potential than what your mind tells you. Even like every minute you can accomplish way more than what you think you can. And I think that it's our job to kind of check your mind, check your own thoughts. I just tell people, like, show up. Don't worry about anything else. Show up, do what I say, and your life is going to change. Like, guaranteed. And my job is to get you out of your head more than anything else, is to get you out of your head, into your body, into your power, and you change really quickly. I know I didn't expect this to happen, but I've changed people's lives. And I feel so grateful that I can say that, because so many people have changed my life significantly. And and I know it was tough love, and it was more love than toughness, even though at the time I thought it was.
Sure.
Thought he was trying to kill me, but
yeah,
I made it.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to get the message, but it eventually gets through to you.
Yeah,
eventually it does, and it's a higher message, and it's a difficult one for a lot of us to get into. But I think we find avenues like boxing that never. I don't think that people get into that and really realize where they're going to go with it and what avenue it's going to be and where it's going to take them. And it's changed so many people's lives. And your story is just one of those amazing stories about people completely taking a different direction in life through boxing. Which
I just have this one client. He keeps popping up, so I'm going to talk about him. Oh, I love him so much. He's like 65 years old, and he came into my gym, and he had some weight issues, had a list of health issues that he was going through, and had, I got pins in my ankles and pins in my knees and pins in my backs, and and all this stuff. And I was like, just come in, let's work around some stuff. Let's see what we can do. And he's such a staple in the gym. I talked him into getting his coaching license, so he can he can monitor sparring, and he brings he's such like a cheerleader for the gym. And plus he gets his blood work numbers down, and he didn't think, and now he's looking at possible masters tournaments. And I'm like, just things like that. Like he had a new life breathed into him that he didn't even know he needed or he wanted, and I think really great things like that happen when you get connected to, for me, it's a boxing gym, but whatever, gets you into your body and gets you into your community. I think that is
absolutely.
That's the magic sauce. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
One of the exciting things that we're going to talk about is some guest appearances for us at the RAC. So
I'm so excited about that too. I hope other people are excited.
Oh, I'm sure they will be. So again, just want to speak on you real quick, is that people in Southwest Michigan, I don't really think they know what they have in Clair, Ramirez and Dan, that they have 2 coaches that are a level that most people would never ever have access to in the world. I'm super privileged that we were lucky enough to find you guys, and that we have been a chance to highlight you, and that you guys are going to be guest appearing at the RAC. I think that's just a huge elevator, because Renaissance Athletic Club, we want to be community involved. That's always our mantra, is being involved in our community and elevating our community and bringing people in. And this is just another opportunity to bring really, really good quality people around us and bring us into that. So we so much appreciate it, and we absolutely appreciate your time. And like I said, we could probably do like another hour and a half of this.
Gosh, thank you.
One of the things I do want to ask you before we let you go, though, real quick, is, and also throw some kudos at you, is that I don't know if you know that there is going to be an all-female boxing card coming up July 11th this year at Madison Square Garden.
What?
Yes.
Wait, with Serrano?
It's Serrano,
Yeah,
Serrano and Taylor.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know it was all female card.
yeah, it's an all-female
Yeah.
card. Yeah, so amazing. So
Yeah.
I also want to throw a little thing at you that you were part of that. You
Yeah.
bringing that out. You know, you were in there
Yes.
when none of that was there. You were there, and so many like great champions from the past. Chrissy Martin and other fighters that I mean, Layla Ali had a name, but I mean that never really got out there as much as it should have.
Ann
now.
Wolf,
Oh my gosh,
incredible fighter.
so many fantastic fighters. That Holly Holmes and only really
Holmes.
gave no.
I
no
loved
rate.
Holly
Yeah,
Holmes.
tremendous fighter.
Still love you, Holly Holmes. I
Yeah,
wanna say I
she's
love-
awesome. Yeah, she's fantastic. Really, really great. And never didn't get the accolades that she deserved.
No, she was an
truthfully.
incredible,
Yeah.
and that's why I think she was such a great. She is such a great. I don't know if she retired. I think she was talking about it.
Had transitioned over to
Yeah,
MMA, and
yeah,
actually, it was phenomenal.
She got him.
Oh,
I-
absolutely.
I don't want to, start anything, but I just think,
You know my feelings on it, so
rarely see an MMA fighter be able to take a boxer.
yeah, she's pretty.
throw
pretty,
that out there.
Pretty good one. She was
Should
an
not
awful
say
good one.
that too much because I do share space with the
And
MMA gym.
I love MMA too. I also love MMA fighting, Italy, but
Good.
this is my
Same.
my roots. So
Yeah.
absolutely. Claire Ramirez, thank you so
Thank
much for
you
being
so
with us
much.
today,
Thank you,
and
Todd.
look forward to seeing you. And we will put some information out there for your gym and going forward on some of the guest appearances. So I know when you fit that into your schedule between being a boxing coach and a medical student,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
and an instructor.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
It was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.